Hey everyone, how are you doing this morning? Justice, what's up?
Hey, how are you? Doing well over here.
Good, good. Today we're going to talk about those EV fires that everyone seems to be thinking about right now. They're in Florida, hurricanes involved, salt water. It's not a typical scenario that people will encounter, but it is something worth talking about. EV fires are hard to put out, and we're going to talk about that. But first, I figured I'd kick it off with some other news, shall we?
Absolutely. Let's start with something a little more positive, hopefully. I
Yeah,
don't know
yeah.
what you got, but
I'm gonna pivot to Jeep, and then we'll dive into the
oh yeah,
EV
yeah.
fire news. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. Jeep is talking a lot these days about their new electric Avenger EV.
Yeah.
This is pretty exciting. Um, they're giving it a rugged 4x4 concept option, which is not surprising considering that Jeep has been saying that this is going to be a Rubicon ready electric Jeep. That's what they have said. So yeah, if you're thinking that this is not off-road enough for you, then I don't know what to tell you because Jeep is giving it their best. So they say that it's a wider track with beefier tires and a thicker body cladding. Um, it's the 4x4 concept. Now, I'm not surprised that they're doing this. They've definitely got to win over their Jeep fans, and this is a step in that direction. But when are we actually going to see it? It looks like late 2023, probably 2024. Okay, so yay, Jeep. If you guys want to learn more about the Jeep EVs, we've got a guide for you here. I'm going to go ahead and share that one more time because it's pretty interesting. Right now, the best selling plug in hybrid in America is actually the Wrangler 4xe. It's not fully electric, it's a plug in hybrid, but hey, it beat the RAV4 Prime. That's pretty impressive.
Uh yeah.
But tell us why, Justice. Tell us why. Why
They,
did it beat
they,
the RAV4 Prime?
because they are actually making the Jeep Avenger, whereas the Rav4 Prime they're making like 20. I mean,
Yeah.
they're just not making the Rav4 Prime, and not because of lack of demand, just lack of materials. And Toyota's concentrating on so many other things.
Yeah, let's see if we can pull up the sales numbers on that. Let's see. Headline from Inside EVs is that Toyota plug-in car sales were cut in half in the third quarter. No BZ4X fully electric Toyotas were sold. That's because of the recall, which they do have a solution for the BZ4X and Subaru Solterra recall. So that's good. They should go back on sale soon. They're going to fix those wheels. But in the third quarter, none were sold. And let's see if they've got any numbers for the RAV4 Prime. Okay, so in the entire third quarter, RAV4 Prime sales were down 61% over Q2. 61% to 3,900 RAV4 Primes sold in the entire United States. Only 2,100 Prius Primes were sold in Q3. So, considering how vast Toyota's market share is in the United States, they're in between number one and number two for automotive sales in the US up against General Motors. Those are really small numbers for Toyota.
Yeah, well, and breaking that the Rav4 Prime down, that is 68 per state.
Yeah.
So like
Yes.
there's I get almost that many people asking for a Rav4 Prime in a month. So
Yep.
I mean the demand is there. They just can't make them fast enough.
Yep. This data is courtesy of Inside EVs. Love what they do over there. Toyota even sold 79 of its hydrogen powered Toyota Mirais, which are basically only sold in California because that's the only state with I don't know what you could try to call realistic, real world capable hydrogen fueling stations.
Can
But
you? Do you know
nah,
how
not
many
not
are?
me.
Yeah,
How
do you know
many?
how many hydrogen stations are working
What, like
in
10,
California right now?
20? I don't know.
Zero.
Really? Why?
They're all shut down right now.
I did not know that.
Yeah, there's a lawsuit going on right now about selling a vehicle that you can't fuel up I know there were glitches in the beginning, and I'm guessing it's a hydrogen. I don't know. I haven't looked into why, but I know last week there were 0 hydrogen stations working in California.
So what do you do if you have a hydrogen fuel cell vehicle? What's the range like on one of those? Let me see. Toyota Mirai range. I don't know much about hydrogen powered EVs because they're still EVs. They're just hydrogen powered. Um,
Yeah, well, yeah, the Mirai is all battery electric hydrogen. There
yeah.
are other hydrogen ice hybrids,
Okay.
but
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, but the Mirai isn't one of them.
So it
And it's
says, what's that?
go ahead. No, go ahead.
357 to 400 miles of range. So I guess you can just hope that your commute's not too far while those hydrogen stations are down. But ooh, that's a doozy.
And it's only $18 a gallon.
Oh, okay. And how many gallons do you need? Like 6, something like that?
I think it's like 5 or 6. Yeah,
All right, I'm looking it up because this has got me curious. Uh, Tough to
doing
find
it
answers
live,
here.
folks.
Yep,
Doing it
doing it
on the
live.
fly.
5 kilograms. So
That's right.
not
Kilograms.
122 liters. Yeah, I don't know. Okay, guys, do
Yeah,
it
all
live.
of us Americans are going, "What are you talking about, man?"
Yeah, maybe we'll move on from the Mirai, but yeah, don't buy a Toyota Mirai if you have to be anywhere
Yeah.
because hydrogen stations are down apparently, and that's not cool. But I'm gonna move on to the EQE. So those of you in the luxury market, not me, you've got another super luxury option to consider right here. Mercedes EQE. It's ready for production in Alabama. That's exciting. An American made EV. It's not affordable, but if you can afford it, hey, you're supporting American made EV production. Looks a lot like the EQS sedan. Not a surprise there. That is the whole EQ series philosophy right there when it comes to design language. Um, so they've got the EQB, they've got the EQS, and the EQE. Um, I get kind of confused because these names are all too similar. But I have sat in a sedan EQS. It was lovely. Um, yeah, nicely embroidered. But the price tag is going to be reasonably over 100 grand for most of these on the market. It's up against the BMW iX, so I would take the Mercedes Benz option over the iX any day based on exterior styling choices, but that's just me.
Me too. Me too. I really like this one.
Yeah, yeah. Good point. All right. So, Justice, what news items are on your mind before we dive into EV fires here in about 2 or 3 minutes?
I was just about to say, actually, everything you keep pulling up are all the ones that I had
Oh, that's
bookmarked
all
and
right.
ready to go too, which
That's
is
all
good.
right.
Which is good. How about Hyundai looking
What's
to?
the Hyundai news?
They are going to begin construction on their first EV plant on the 25th of this month.
Oh, the one down in Georgia.
Yeah. So was that 5 day or no?
That's exciting.
7 days? Yeah.
Okay, I've got that pulled up. We'll share it with everyone. Yeah. So Hyundai is spending 3.5, maybe $4 billion on a new fully electric production facility down in Georgia. And this
According
is the
to Electric, that's 5.5 billion now.
wow, okay. 5.5 billion over here on Reuters too. Yeah, the price tags tend to go up for these types of projects.
Yeah.
But keep in mind, this is why a senator had introduced new legislation to try to get automakers who are investing in American EV production to have access to the EV tax credits here in the United States. Because as of right now, they have to be made in America with batteries that are at least, I forget the percentages, but at least 40% made in America with battery components or battery minerals that are at least 40% derived from free trade agreement countries. Um, there are strict rules in place, but above all, the EV itself needs to have quote unquote final assembly in North America, the US, Canada, or Mexico. Even though Hyundai is investing $5.5 billion in this Georgia plant, looks like they're breaking ground this month. That's great news. their EVs do not qualify for the new EV tax credit because until this plant comes online in what, like 2 years, um, American consumers will not be able to take advantage of the new EV tax credit.
Which seems a shame. If they're going to put the $5.5 billion into it, seems like, as long as they're going forward with it and it's not just proposed, that maybe they should get some of that advantage, and the consumers should be able to buy their vehicles.
Yeah, I agree. And we know that South Korea's government is in talks right now with the U.S. government to try to work out some kind of compromise. But here it says Hyundai plans to begin commercial production in the first half of 2025. That is quite a ways away. So I bet something's going to give before then. I bet there will be an amendment to the new EV tax credit. Question is, would it be retroactive? And we don't know.
Yeah, yeah. I'm guessing that there's gonna be some compromising going on. I doubt it's going to be retroactive. So there'll be
Yeah.
just a group of people who are sort of out of luck.
Yeah. Yeah. And we got to keep in mind that the new EV tax credit is based on battery sourcing. So, yes, the EV needs to have final assembly in the United States, Canada, or Mexico, aka North America. But in order to get the first half, $3,750, a certain percentage of the battery components need to be assembled in the United States or free trade agreement countries. And another percentage of the battery minerals needs to be sourced from the United States or free trade agreement countries. So it's really a battery sourcing tax credit, whereas the previous original tax credit in place since 2009 was more of a battery capacity tax credit. It was
Yeah,
based on the size of the battery. For example, plug-in hybrids got a smaller credit than fully electric vehicles because they had smaller batteries.
which
Yep.
makes sense. I mean, that approach makes sense too.
Yep, I agree. Okay, Justice. I guess we got to dive into the big topic today.
All
It
right.
is EV fires and hurricanes. You want to kick us off and introduce to everyone why we're even talking about this?
Yeah. So I know we've talked about EV fires before and the misconceptions of them, but that is on an everyday basis.
Hmm.
As Ian has hit Florida, there are some things popping up that maybe you weren't considered, weren't thought about, didn't know. At least those of us in the public didn't know about. And some of these flooded vehicles, the salt water has penetrated into the battery packs and are causing fires.
Hmm.
So, as we know, EV fires aren't actually all that common, actually, very, very less common than any other type of vehicle fire. However, when they do catch fire, it can take up to 6 hours to put them out. And they can reignite after it's been put out without you knowing that it's going to reignite. So when it is on fire, there actually is a problem here. There is
Yes.
something that we need to figure out and get straightened out.
I would say our main thesis today, Justice, and let me know if you disagree, is that this is a problem worth talking about, even though for most Americans and most people around the world who don't have to worry about their EVs sitting in salt water for a prolonged period of time, EV fires are very, very rare. And in fact, EVs are prone to fewer fires than even just traditional combustion powered vehicles and even hybrid powered vehicles. They have higher rates of fire incidences than electric vehicles do. But that's not
by
true when it
by
comes
a
to,
lot.
yes, the data is out there. Hybrid cars
Yeah.
have the highest rate of vehicle fires, right?
Just to put that into perspective for people. So for every 100,000 vehicles, hybrids catch fire at 3,475 for per 100,000. ICE vehicles are much lower at 1,530 per 100,000, and EVs catch fire at 25 per 100,000.
Yep.
So it's not even close. It's not even close. So on a normal basis, driving your vehicle, your EV is almost never going to have this problem. However,
However, salt water will really, really change that dynamic. So we're
yeah,
not here to beat around the bush, okay, you guys.
mm-mm,
Whenever an electric vehicle is sitting in salt water for any prolonged period of time, which If you think about it, that's going to be a hurricane because otherwise, why are you going to have an EV sitting in salt water unless you just drive it off the beach and right into the ocean intentionally? The last time we really dealt with this on a large scale was Hurricane Sandy in 2012. Got to remember that was the death knell for Fisker's original EV ambitions when their first
Yeah.
shipment of fully electric, or those are actually hybrid electric vehicles, uh, caught on fire because they were sitting in salt water for too long. So how does this happen? Salt breaks the seal, but through corrosion, it breaks the
Hmm.
waterproofing seal in an EV battery pack. That's why you've seen probably videos of the Hummer EV, the Rivian R1T. They can drive through water. Uh, Elon Musk says that the Cybertruck is going to be able to be almost like a boat. How can they do that? Because they're not driving through salt water, you guys. They're driving through fresh water, fording a stream, small river, things like that. Mostly showing off is what they're doing. But salt water is a whole different story. That is going to accelerate corrosion. And once you break the water seal of the battery pack, you can get salt bridges forming in the battery. Salt bridges are not good. They are not good at all.
Yeah, and I think you can probably drive through salt water. You
Yeah.
just don't want it sitting in it.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're going to drive through the beach, it's not like, hey, salt water splashing on my vehicle, it's going to corrode all of a sudden.
No, yeah, it's not
No,
that.
I
Sitting
mean,
in.
but sitting in like in a flood from a hurricane, um, yeah, I mean, real problems. Just like with any vehicle, real problems happen. The problem with EVs is that in an ICE vehicle, it's not going to spontaneously combust 2 days later.
Yep. Yep. So here's what really brought this into the news. There are reports and pictures and photographs. I mean, photographs and videos of a few Tesla EVs in Florida on fire, and it's very difficult to put those fires out.
Mhm.
Um, I looked at official guidance shared by firefighters associations, and it originally goes back to the NHTSA's guidance here in the United States. And what are your options when an electric vehicle is on fire? It's either let it burn out, which can happen. They said can happen pretty quickly if you just let it burn out, uh, quickly as in an hour or two, or you can douse it with water for up to 8 hours. And
Yeah.
in some real world instances, they have used up to 27,000 gallons of water to put out an EV fire. But that becomes more of a problem when you've got your first responders needing to focus on saving lives, such as in the case of Hurricane Ian, where they don't want to be worried about putting out a Tesla fire. They want to be making sure that everyone is accounted for and safe. So here's what happened. Florida Senator Rick Scott wrote to the U.S. Department of Transportation. Here we've got this article via Fortune, and asked Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg for a response when it comes to what's going on there. So Scott wrote, in addition to the damage caused by the storm itself, the saltwater flooding in several coastal areas has had further destructive consequences caused by lithium ion batteries and flooded EVs spontaneously combusting and catching fire. It's been a threat that has forced local fire departments to divert resources away from hurricane recovery. Um, so he goes on to say, basically, please give us some guidance. What should we do? And we've got the official letter pulled up from the Department of Transportation in response to uh, Senator Rick Scott's request, and it is full of information. Go ahead and pull that up. Now, Justice, I don't know if you've seen this, but it's pretty interesting.
I have not seen this. I'm glad to hear the response.
Yeah, so the official response, I'll try to skip over the fluff this time, okay? So, response from the Department of Transportation and the NHTSA to Senator Rick Scott and the Florida officials who are concerned. They go on to note that they learned a lot from Hurricane Sandy in 2012 when this happened the first time around. There are a lot more EVs on the roads now, and Florida is the number 2 state when it comes to EVs registered in the nation. Florida is right after California. Texas is number 3. Yeah, interesting. All right. So it says you've asked some specific questions, and our responses are below. Let's see. The recent incidents in Florida that the NHTSA is aware of involved Tesla vehicles. I searched for how many incidents there have been in Florida. I could not find an answer, but I'm pretty sure if there were more than a dozen, we'd be hearing even more about this. Don't you think, Justice?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, with the way these things get overblown, we would absolutely be hearing a ton about it. But
But I don't want to minimize it because
nope.
there are still EVs that have not spontaneously combusted due to thermal runaway that are still a threat because they were submerged in salt water.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, they then recommend going to Tesla's emergency response guide. Tesla has done a really good job publishing resources for first responders to let them know exactly how to handle Tesla's on fire, basically. And automakers are required by law to provide these types of guides to first responders here in the United States. So that is why they're directing them to that. I did not know they're also on YouTube. So apparently Tesla has developed YouTube demonstration videos. Interesting, interesting. But they go on to address several of the other concerns, such as PPE, personal protective equipment requirements, and let's see, let me get to it right here. This is pretty interesting. Is there research or guidance as to the timeline by which corrosion may lead to fires? So, lithium ion vehicle battery fires have been observed both rapidly igniting and igniting several weeks after battery damage occurred. This is not good. This is all because it's impossible to predict exactly when the thermal runaway will occur. Um, yeah, just interesting stuff here. What can you do about it? I mean, this is interesting in itself. If you can, tow the vehicle 50 feet away from any structures so that if it does catch on fire, you're not going to burn down the house or the building. Now, this is a pain in the butt. Let's be real, Justice. It's a pain in the butt.
Yeah. Yeah. And let's be honest, it's not realistic. You're not going to do that.
Yeah.
You're not going to go and tow your Tesla 50 feet out for, 4 months after it had been flooded.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not going to happen. People just aren't going to do that.
Yep. So when is this a problem that you need to worry about? If you live in a coastal area and there's a chance that you might be leaving your electric vehicle behind if you ever need to evacuate due to a hurricane, then you would need to worry about this. You would want to make sure your vehicle is parked away from the building. They recommend 50 feet away so that if the waterproofing seal on the battery pack was to be broken and thermal runaway was to occur, aka your car catches on fire, it does not burn your house down with it. So this is a problem worth educating EV owners along the coasts about. But it is not something that most of us are going to deal with if we do not live in an area where saltwater flooding can be as much of an issue. Now, Justice, here's a question, and I think some people in the chat might be talking about it, but I seriously want to know more about this. So, in the winter, when we put salt on the roads here in my part of the country, I'm imagining it would take a whole lot of vehicle abuse, aka never washing that vehicle, never getting it cleaned by rainwater, for example, in order for that salt to ever have a chance of penetrating the waterproof sealing on the battery pack. Because those battery packs are engineered to be able to handle the abuse and to be able to handle some corrosion without having any risk of failure. I don't think it would be possible.
No, I don't. Even if you didn't wash your vehicle, this has to go in from the top seals, from what I understand. So
Yeah,
your bottom isn't going to, the salt and corrosion from the road is never going to really affect this because
yeah,
you have that sort of bulletproof plate on the bottom of the EV. It has to get up like in a flood situation. It has to get up inside and
okay.
get to the top of the batteries for this to be an issue. So it literally has to be sitting for quite some time, at least, you know, many hours, fully submerged for this to be an issue. You're not going to get, no matter how much road salt you get, it's never going to be an issue on these things.
Thank you for clarifying that. Appreciate that. So yeah, you just shared with us that it's a top-down issue, which means literally submerged in water.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that makes a whole lot more sense.
But I mean, it's a real issue.
Yeah, it is.
Like if you live on the East Coast, like, I mean, you're not going to get it here in California, but if you live on the East Coast where these things are more prone to happen, It's certainly something to think about. And I know I would, if I was in a hurricane area, this definitely gives me pause. Now,
Hmm.
I'm a pro EV guy. I'm sitting here on the show with you. um, but it would certainly give me pause if I was in Florida, North Carolina, and that, sort of area of where these hurricanes hit. And, if you're prone to flooding, I would think about it. This is
Yep.
something I would weigh in on, because if you're evacuating, great vehicles to evacuate in as they can drive through floodwater. But if you have to leave it behind, is that something you want to think about? Hey, we have to evacuate. Let me move the car out of the garage 50 feet, so we can flee for our lives. Like, come on. That's one more thing I don't want to think about.
Yep. Yep. But if you have the foresight and the ability to plan ahead, because I'm a weather nerd. I watch storm chasing videos. I watch hurricane chasing videos. I'm just interested in the science of it all. The destruction is always tragic, but typically you've got at least 48 hours to plan ahead whenever you need to flee, unless you're one of the people who just waits for the last minute and hopes for the best. And if you've got 48 hours to flee and you're not taking your electric vehicle with you to evacuate, then park it at least 50 feet away from the building so that if the worst happens, you do not burn down your home. But yeah, I agree 100% that our first responders should not have to be worrying about this right now. And that's where, as transportation electrifies, there is going to be some responsibility that falls on the driver themselves to move their vehicle away from the building so that they're not having to put out house fires in addition to everything else that they are doing to save people's lives.
Well,
But
but this also goes to the advancement of firefighting. Right.
mhm.
Well, the firefighting has changed a lot over the years. Building materials have changed a lot over the years. They're not as busy. Firefighters aren't as busy today as they were 100 years ago, because things are more fireproof. But firefighting techniques have advanced, and they will probably eventually need to get to where they have something on the trucks more than water that can help put this out very quickly.
Yes. Now, here's an interesting article on a firefighter's resource website. It basically talks about that, where firefighters love being very aggressive and proactive and tackling the fire right away. They don't want to wait it out, but the science shows that with an electric vehicle fire, you either need to douse it with between 10,000 and 30,000 gallons of water over 6 to 8 hours, because once the fire is out, it can spark back up again, seemingly randomly, right? As more battery cells within the battery pack go through thermal runaway. A thermal runaway is basically a miniature explosion, right? It does not need oxygen to happen. It's exothermic, so it does not need oxygen. It creates its own combustible situation. So once you put out, say, the battery fire that had started in one part of the battery pack, you can get thermal runaway in a separate part of the battery pack, different cells within the pack. And that can basically cause fire part two, which is going to be a whole nother situation to deal with. So they say, what should you do? Douse it with douse it with water for 6 to 8 hours, or wait it out. These firefighters advocate for waiting it out. They say that experience has shown that if you let the EV burn, it can be over in 1 to 2 hours. Whereas if you try to attack it with some of the existing strategies that they use for other types of fires, it's going to end up being a whole day's mess. And firefighters don't have time for that. So, yeah. So what works? Let it burn. But what can EV drivers do to be responsible? If your car is going to be sitting in floodwater in a hurricane, salt water particularly, park it away from a building so that it does not become an even worse problem. Yep.
Yeah. Man, there have to be materials out there other than water that you could douse this with to keep the fire out. And I think that's probably going to be the next turn here.
Yeah. Now, a very interesting aspect of the little article that I just shared was that they said plenty of these materials could put it out, but the problem is getting into the battery pack. Um, the battery packs are sealed so well because they're engineered to be sealed well, right?
Yeah.
That it's hard to get the foam, the water. It's hard to get it inside of the sealed battery pack where the explosions and the thermal runaway are happening. So that's the problem. If they could find a way to get into the pack quickly, they could put it out. But it's just a barrier that's hard to get through.
Sounds like the OEMs and the fire departments need to get together and figure out a solution here.
Yes. Now, we are going to wrap this show up, but real quick, I wanted to see if I can find some information on exactly that topic. What are OEMs required to do in order to be proactive about this? And I believe they're required to supply state firefighter coordinating agencies with basically guides as to what to do when an EV catches on fire. Let me see.
And the guide isn't let it burn or run away.
Like an official guide. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see. As of the summer of this year, so June 2022, 8 OEMs updated their emergency response guides to include more specific information about how to fight EV fires. Because another thing that is noted is the specific engineering design of the battery pack will influence how it's going to be approached when it comes to a thermal runaway and putting out a fire. Okay, so Teslas might be different from my Hyundai Ioniq 5 depending on the engineering of the battery pack, and that's why it's important that automakers share their specific recommendations and what their testing has shown with the firefighters, so that they can have access to emergency response guides that show how you can best put out a fire for a specific EV, not just EVs overall. So
Wow, that's horrible.
yeah,
So
that they
you
have to
roll up
pull. They
to
have
an
to
EV
roll up and
fire and you got to pull out the manual. Okay, which kind of vehicle is this?
yes, exactly.
Oh, wow,
Yeah.
that's awful.
Yep. So, I don't know, Justice. Is this a reason why Tesla should just dominate EV sales so that they only have to have one fire guide instead of 32?
Yeah, I
Oh
mean,
man.
it's just, I mean, and this is a real issue. This is serious, but like, I know it's sort of getting overblown here a little bit. Like, it is still extraordinarily rare.
Yeah.
ICE vehicles, hybrids are still much worse. It's just that there is a problem here that needs to be addressed. And, I'm not sure that having firefighters pull out a manual at a fire and try to figure out what vehicle it is the best solution here. There has to be something more.
Yeah. Yep, that is true. There are situations in which firefighters have to basically have uh what's the word for it? It's the person in command, central command, who is pulling out a manual anyways if it's like electrical infrastructure. So they're not that's not a completely new scenario, having to pull out a
Yeah.
manual and follow those procedures, but it is still a pain in the butt for sure. Well, thank you, Justice. This has been an interesting show, and yeah, we'll see what happens next. But we'll drop some
Yep.
resources down in the comments in the video, because there is definitely a lot we can all learn about this, including myself. So thank you for sticking with us today, and we'll see you guys on Wednesday.
Bye, everybody.